Hey, this is Jason Moss with Georgia Manufacturing Alliance and Manufacturing News Network. We've got a great call lined up today with Mr. Felix Lynn. He is the Vice President of HR and External Affairs with Bluebird Bus Corporation, and I'm gonna have him tell a little bit about the company and his role there. But we're really excited to see how business leaders are coming together and sharing best practices. The goal for this call and a lot of the stuff that we're doing on Manufacturing News Network is, again, to introduce you to some of the industry leaders and let them share what's going on in their space. Because as we all deal with the challenges that the coronavirus is throwing a wrench in a lot of the machines of here in Georgia, and we're trying to figure out how best to deal with those. So, with that, I'm very excited to have Felix online with us. And if you would just tell, for the folks that are not real familiar with your company, tell a little bit about what you do, what kind of production levels and employees and that sort of thing that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason, first of all, thanks for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be doing this with you. And again, you guys have been doing a lot of great work, with the roundtables and all that. So certainly appreciate that. Mm-hmm. A little bit of just brief introduction about Bluebird for the ones that are not familiar with what we do. We're a leading school bus manufacturer that's based out of Middle Georgia. Specifically, our headquarters is now in Macon, Georgia, and our manufacturing facilities are in Fort Valley, Georgia, and Peach County. We've been in business for 90 plus years. Started out as a family business back in the 20s, and then in the early 90s, the Lewis family had kind of transitioned out of the business and sold it to different investors. As of 4 or 5 years ago, we are now a $1 billion public traded company that's based out of Middle Georgia. We are the second largest private employer in this area, if not one of the, I believe we're the largest manufacturing-based company in this area. A little bit over 2,400 total employee-wise, so pretty decent footprint in this area. We service about a third of the entire North American school bus market. But at the same time, we also build products for our armed forces and also some key government agencies.
Okay. So I've spent, a lot of us have growing up in Georgia, I always just connected all buses were Bluebird buses. I didn't know that there was anything else out there on the market. I just familiar with that big blue bird. So, but I did want to, now so you run about 2,400 employees. You're running 3 shifts. Is that right? 2?
Yeah. We have 2 shifts going on right now, day shift and night shift. We also have a fabrication plant that's a few miles south of the main assembly plant, and they're on a 3-shift operation, have a weekend shift as well.
Okay.
And again, the shift, it's really because of the growth driven. We remember the recession back in 08, 09. Across the board, a lot of different industry took a pretty good hit, and early 2010s we kind of came out of the recession and rebounded. The market rebounded, and we did a lot of different things, and we went from a 4/10 day shift operation to 5-day, 6-day rotation shift, and then to 2-shift operation a few years ago. It's all growth driven.
Right. Yeah. I gotcha. And you guys produce a bunch of buses, right?
Yeah. It's I think last year we produced a little bit over 11,000 units, which is a lot for us. Again, 5 or 6 years ago we were at 6,000 or 7,000 units, so we've seen a lot of growth from in the marketplace.
Yeah, and those are not all standard. You don't build a lot of those things for inventory. Those are all custom. We've toured Bluebird. It's been a little while back. We had you on the radar to tour again till something else sort of popped up. But pretty customized product that you got there.
Yeah, when people come through our facility, they see a lot of yellow buses, and the assumption is that they're all the same. But on average, probably about 1.2 buses, all different, because
Mm-hmm.
there's so much complexity that goes into our product. If you look at, there's federal level standards we got to be complied with. Every single state, county, even down to the school districts can have their own set of specifications.
Mm-hmm.
So again, all of our orders are pretty much completely different, and we build the order. We don't build the stock, hardly.
Right. I gotcha. Well, tell us a little bit about what you're seeing as far as, how has the coronavirus impacted your workforce at this point? What was it looking like?
Yeah, it's definitely challenging times, and I think talking with the rest of the folks on GMA and others, I think a lot of folks are going through a lot of different plannings, right? I think for us, we're kind of operating with a few guiding principles in mind. Obviously, one, people first.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure our folks are taken care of. Their health and safety is priority. And then two, just come through a recognition that at some point we're probably going to have some sort of interruption in our business,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of whether it's things really get out of hand, or government orders and that sort of stuff. And then going through just actively coming up with cash conservation plans, contingency plans. And I think the fourth point is the most important, is also putting ourselves in the best position to rebound, when this is all over. I think a lot of times we focus so much on what's immediately ahead of you in dealing with these situations,
Mm-hmm.
when you forget to make plans in terms of, eventually, right, whether it's weeks or months, there's different opinions out there.
Right.
It is going to pass, and we'll have to get back to do what we do, whether it's us as a company or all other industries, the economy in general. We got to be in a position to rebound.
Right. And I love that foresight to be able to be making the plans for the comeback now. And I'm I understand completely about the culture at Bluebird, about the people first, and I love the mentality that you guys have, and it shows in everything that you do, all the decisions that you make. That's not a new plan. That's been around for a little while.
Yeah.
The Bluebird culture.
And this is one of those things, as different agencies and government entities, issue orders, again, we're in one of those industries that's considered essential business, right? And we have an obligation, obviously, to make sure that when schools do start back up, there's buses to transport kids.
Right.
Also, at the same time, again, some of our customers are the military and other government agencies. They
Mm-hmm.
depend on us being able to run the plant and deliver those buses.
Okay.
So our situation, probably similar to some of the other more critical industries as well. Again, just we have protocols in place in terms of helping us, making sure that we minimize the exposure to COVID-19 from employee standpoint. At the same time, trying to continue to run the business. Right.
And that's one of the things that we talked a little bit about today on the HR call. Is what was we had a little hiccup on the technology there, so I apologize if we ran into a roadblock there. But we've archived those calls, so all the roundtable calls that we're doing are archived for people that are subscribers. So you can go back in and pop in and listen to that. Pretty good. There is a very electric moment that I will put a time stamp on that you'll get a kick out of. That's part of the reason, again, we're doing these calls, and especially doing the roundtable calls for the subscribers, is to be able to get the industry leaders together and talk about some of the key factors that they're facing. And we've got a topic that came up is, so what is a critical industry? Do you qualify? What manufacturers qualify and which ones don't? So we've got a link on our webpage that takes you to that guidance from the federal government that tells you kind of what's listed and what's not. Pretty interesting list. I dug through that a little bit last night and was reading some how that impacts different businesses. I mean, I had 3 companies yesterday afternoon. Right after I got it set up, 3 people just called me back to back and said, do we count? Does it work? I'm like, yeah, that's not my decision to make, but I can tell you where you can find that out and, and evaluate that, because we're getting a lot of requests to, what manufacturers can stay in business, which ones need to work. What do you do with your employees in the event? And maybe you can share a little bit of insight on that. You've already gone through the process. A lot of companies don't have the staff to really be able to evaluate that. So for a smaller manufacturer, what recommendations do you have on that contingency plan in the event that there's a shelter in place order placed?
Yeah, I mean, starting out with in terms of what you have to do to kind of help make the case to be an essential business, right? I think we have a very good partner relationship with our local economic development office,
right?
And it's a coordinated effort with the regional office and the state level as well.
Right.
So I think my number one recommendation is for any manufacturers or industry partners is find out who your local economic or industrial authority partner is in your area, and have a discussion with them.
Right.
Leverage them and help make the case. Specifically for us, our facilities in Peach County. So Peach County, they're doing a fantastic job and working with us and having these dialogues. So I think that would be the first thing to do.
Okay. Perfect.
And then the second thing, obviously, is, that's a position that the company's taking, and also educating, communicating that to your employees, right? Because again, people read about, what the orders are and the recommendations and all that. You have to let your employees understand that you're in a critical industry, you're essential business. There's a reason. What's the reason behind we have to keep our facilities open? Even under some recommendations from the government. So I think those are the things that again, from a communication standpoint, you can't over communicate that, and we are actively doing that multiple times a day with our employees at the facility, letting them know what's our position on this.
Yeah, I think that's a key point, is making sure, again, communication is magic in every relationship, and that the more that we do that, that's why we're doing these calls. That's why I'm, again, fortunate to have you guys on to share this insight. So what about it? I've actually got several calls recently about, developing a form letter for employees that in the event that there's a shelter in place and you're an essential facility, manufacturing facility. Any suggestions on how that works? So, I mean, again, for people that don't know anything about it, kind of walk us through that process.
Yeah, and this is something that, again, our local economic development office has helped us with. They've actually came out with templates and letters for businesses that self-identify as essential businesses, right?
Right.
Letters that employees can kind of carry with them in the event. If there is some sort of strict enforcement of the shelter-in-place orders, as of right now, I don't think that the governor has issued such an order. I know the press conference yesterday, there were just some general recommendations and whatnot, but it's not exactly the same order that some of the other states have issued at this point.
Right.
So again, our local resources have been very, very helpful in helping with that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I was pretty surprised today. I mean, I too, I listened to Governor Kemp, and I'm just, hats off to everybody that's all of our elected officials. I mean, these guys and gals are giving it all right now. I mean, they're being pressed to test right now. It is game time for them guys, for that whole community. And they are doing, I'm just so impressed with what I've seen so far, and the commitment and the dedication and the communication that our elected officials, keep those guys and gals in your prayers, because they're going to need it, because we're not to the roughest spot yet, I don't think, but they've done such a great job of communication and trying to do the right thing across the board. It's really interesting to see how people respond. So I watched, Governor Kemp and then also President Trump right back to back, and to see it really, having such a business friendly environment, Georgia being for the 7th year in a row, I guess it is now, that #1 state to do business. There's a lot to be said for that, and having that culture and that mentality, but also having, the best interest of all the people in the state, right, and all the residents, and you can see that pour through in every word. They're concerned, but they also don't want to make knee-jerk reactions just because New York is, highly concentrated population and a densely populated concentration of people. I mean, that's a different conversation than there is in Fort Valley, right? I mean, there's a little more room spread around, right? I think they're making the right choice. I'm convinced of that, and I didn't get the feel from either that Georgia would be on a statewide level, but Mayor Keisha Bottoms did declare, I think yesterday or the day before, that Atlanta was a shelter in place. And so we're beginning to get conversations again with our manufacturers that are directly impacted. Some are right on the border, do they have an Atlanta address and does it count? So they're trying to figure that piece out. But each of the communities are taking different perspectives. And some are doing, curfews. We're not in a position where we can share everybody's updates statewide. For each town and each community, we can't share all the data and the regulations. But what we're doing is, on the Manufacturing News Network page, we just launched a breaking news section, and that breaking news, as it comes out, as it impacts manufacturers on a statewide level, we're going to list those. One of the things that we listed on there just yesterday, or day before yesterday, was the new information around unemployment and temporary unemployment and that kind of thing. What's your team? I mean, what's the pick up on that so far? Have you guys engaged in that conversation?
Yeah, the Department of Labor, again, I think Georgia is one of the few states that still have the partial unemployment claims policy and process, which is a huge benefit to all the manufacturers. Obviously, in the event if there is some sort of temporary layoff, I think all of us are prepared to file the partial claims on behalf of our employees. Right. I know the commissioner's office issued guidelines in them previously. There's some flexibility in terms of employees have to go into the office and do it, and now it's all online. But now I think they specifically mandate that employers have to do it on behalf of their employees. So we've got those plans in place already to do that. The event that we have to go through, a shutdown, whether it's for a week or 2 weeks and things like that. But I mean, to the point you were making earlier, everybody that's in the position to make decisions, people's got a tough job. There's not a one right way, one right decision or the other, because again, things are happening so quick. There's so many different factors to consider. No one state, 2 states are the same. No 2 communities are the same. Every one situation is completely different. Right. Just the other day, we were on the roundtable. You hear different folks are talking about their plans, and it's all different, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, I think you just got to make an assessment of your situation, your reality, and keep as informed and as up as you can be, and make the best call. Right. And for us, since the beginning of this, we've been going through daily, multiple times a day, senior leadership team, conversations and plannings, right? And we are changing our protocols, updating our plans almost on a daily basis. Right. And that's the reality of it. Mm-hmm. So I think people just gotta understand that it's a tough situation, and people have to make tough calls, and they're making it based on the most updated information that they have at a time.
Yep, they're doing the very best they can with what information they got in front of them. I mean, and we're a small staff. I mean, there's 4 of us here, and I've got the Brittany and Heather are working from home. We made that call Monday. I mean, and it just made sense, because there's no sense in having them on the road if they don't have to be. And do I miss them being in the office and us hanging out? Yeah, we do. But we've committed to an 8 a.m. Zoom call and 11:30 Zoom call for lunch, and then a 5 o'clock wrap up call every day. And we're able to, I mean, it works for us, but it's still, you miss that dynamic. Now, my son's still, now he's off from college now because all the schools are closed. And so we're working in pretty hard right now, full time. And so he and I are hanging out a little bit and, trying to make sure we get as much of this technology fixed as we can. But we all got a new normal, and we got to make those decisions, and we got to trust that the people that are making the decisions have got the right intentions. And I know that they do, especially in the manufacturing world, because it's not about the equipment. It's not about the final product. It's about the people. And,
absolutely.
I mean, we're blessed to be able to have lots of industry, lots of folks in our industry that most of them have that philosophy and mindset. So we're going through, I mean, small companies and large companies. So we've got the two things. One is the on the breaking news tab is, is your business critical business? That's one of them. And then the other is a link to the Department of Labor on how this unemployment component works as well. What about as far as, and we talked a little bit about this previously, about if you have somebody in the facility that happens to come back with a positive test that's been working, what kind of protocols have y'all established on how y'all would manage that as far as like sanitation of the area, their work cell? And have y'all found any guidance? There was on the call today, there was somebody that shared that they found some recommendations, but I don't think there are any federal guidance on how to, sanitize an area. I mean, if you got machines, it's a little different than it is an office environment.
Yeah, I know the EPA, they only publish, in terms of what chemical can kill the virus and whatnot, but I don't think there's any sort of specific guidances. But again, we've contracted third-party people that's specialized in doing this. We've done a lot of disinfections and decontaminations with schools and other industries. So we've got those protocols in place at all of our locations, and depending on the situation, there's different levels of protocols involved. But our overall approach has just been, we're not taking any chances, right?
Right.
We're not waiting until people say, hey, I think I might have, the virus, to do something about it. It's one of those things, we hear anyone who might even have a secondary contact with anyone that's even suspected of cases.
Right.
We are telling people to stay home.
Right.
So I think our approach is probably a little bit more aggressive. And again, on a regular basis right now, we are sanitizing, cleaning the facilities, the offices, the warehouses with these third-party treatments. And then in the event that if there are some sort of positive case or cases that happen in our facility, there's going to be a different level of decontamination protocol that's in place. But the third party folks, they have very, very good process in place to do that.
Very cool. Well, I'm thrilled to hear Bluebird running strong. I mean, now's the time we all got to be continuing to work, super hard. What just off the cuff, what are some of the things that have been most surprising to you during this process? Things that you maybe didn't see coming, or what was a unique learning that you've had going through this process so far?
I think the number one thing is the pace of this, right? We kind of talked a little bit about, even last week when we chatted, how quickly things have changed. I mean, things are changing by the hour, if not quicker.
Yeah.
What worries me is the unknown. In terms of there's still so much about this that we don't know yet. And in terms of planning, again, all of us like to plan with good data, with known information, but there's a good bit of uncertainty out there in terms of how long this will last, what's the true impact of this, or how serious this is. I know a few weeks ago when we look at it, Georgia, for example, only had a couple of cases, and then all of a sudden now, I believe it's what, almost over 1,000 cases, or is over 1,000 cases. So that part of it does surprise me. Or I think it probably surprised a lot of folks. Like I said, we put plans in place and it changes.
Right.
So I think all of us, we just got to be mindful of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nobody's got a crystal ball on this thing, and we're just trying to figure it out every step of the way. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Well, one of the things we talked about, and manufacturers across the board, all around the state, are saying, a lot of them have reached out to me and said that we've got excess capacity, we've got we've got warehouse space, we've got materials, equipment, supplies, whatever we have, and a lot of them have come to us and said, how do we get that to the right people? So on Friday, I think, seems like a bazillion years ago, Thursday or Friday one, we launched the manufacturingtaskforce.com. And again, that's just another page on our website. And what we found was, after posting that and having a conversation, we did our task force call yesterday, our first task force call at 2:00. And I had people immediately call me. And one company manufactures respirators right here in Norcross. And they said, we got some on the shelf and we're producing them as fast as we can, and we could use some help. And then I had another company call. We're a chemical company, and we manufacture commercial chemicals, and we do it business to business. We don't have any like consumer sized bottles, but I can get you 55-gallon drums of hand sanitizer if we flip production tomorrow, and we got the materials to do it. Tell us what you want and how much you want, kind of thing. And I'm like, well, I'm not the state, but let me see what I can do. And then there was another company that does Georgia Expo, and they do trade shows and pipe and drape curtains and a variety of things. They got 20 people that are, professional sewers, right? And so they got equipment and materials and all sorts of stuff. They need some different materials to do surgical mask or, mask with. But so what we did is we stood up the web page. There's a formal line. Any of the manufacturers that are listening to this call, or if you know some other folks in Central Georgia that might have excess capacity, they've got labor, they got warehouse space, they got materials and supplies. There's a list of things that the governor has requested. We've got that on our webpage. And then right after we got everything up and running, we announced that we were going to do the call at 10:00 for a 2:00 call. And between 10 and 2, the governor, leaders of the economic development for the state of Georgia called and said, hey, we're doing something very similar. Would you partner with us on this? And I'm like, well, what does that look like? I'm open for whatever you need. I mean, we're here to serve, if we can figure out the connection. So they're standing up a web page very similar to that, where companies can go on and fill that information out. They don't have it up and running yet, but they said as soon as they do, they wanted to know if we would send them the information. Of course, I'm not going to do anything with the information other than giving it to the people that can take action on it. I can't, I'm not the guy to make the connections, but I'm the guy to at least have the conversation. So they're standing up the page. As soon as their page gets up, we're going to start directing traffic over there. But between now and then, we don't need to wait. You can go to manufacturingtaskforce.com, read the information there. Down at the bottom, there's a little form that you can fill out, and whatever you got, you can put on there and make as an inventory or suggestions. We're all open to that. And then put that on, and then we'll pass that along to the governor's office and let them work it out from there, because they know what the needs are. And I know that we're short on a lot of stuff that we can have access to, but we need to go ahead and make the commitment, and we need to gather the data. So my job right now is to gather the data until the state gets their site ready, and then we're going to point them to the state to be able to gather the data directly. But that's one of the other little pieces that we put together. And I'm, we effectively were out of business 2 weeks ago, because live face-to-face business events and stuff. And those pretty well got wrapped up a couple of weeks ago. But it's really interesting to see the change for us, going from a face-to-face belly-to-belly environment to everything digital. There's good and bad to it, again, I'm making sure I press the record button. I missed that the other day on a big one, but it's just part of the deal. but we're all learning, and we're committed to, and I know that the whole Bluebird team is committed to making sure that they're taking care of their people and doing the right stuff and stepping up and and taking the time. I know you are super busy, but being able to take the time and share with us and the overarching business community, this helps us out a bunch. So again, we don't take that lightly, and really do appreciate y'all's commitment to continue to share like
Yeah, it's one of those, again, Jason, I think us as industry partners really appreciate what you guys do. People just got to understand and things that, events like this, I mean, we're in this all together, things you just outlined in terms of working with the Economic Development Office and different industries, changing the way they do things, and being able to make some emergency supply to our folks who's, front line fighting this thing and all that. I mean, those are all things that we should be doing,
right.
And I think it's platforms like this, right, that allows us to kind of share ideas. And I'll say this, I mean, since this thing started, I've talked to a number of different folks, different manufacturers, different businesses, and people have been great, and just the willingness to share information and best practices and having these dialogues, it has been amazing.
Yeah.
And that's the only way we can get past this. It's just by doing it together.
Right. Well, that's great. Well, as we kind of pull this thing together here, as we wrap it up, what other questions, if you were doing the conversations and the interviews with other industry leaders, what questions have we not talked about that you would like to have insight on or information on that we maybe have not touched on yet? So we've got other people in the automotive, we got people in all kind of different transportation, food and beverage, any industry at all.
Yeah, I think you guys have done a pretty good job in just having different topics. I know there's HR roundtable, there's finance roundtables. We'll have these discussions, and just putting people in contact with each other have been very, very helpful, right? I think one of the things we can also do is, help us understand and help people understand in general, what are the resources out there, because this is all new to us, right? It's not like a hurricane or flood, something like that.
Yeah, that's not on page 27. Yeah.
So we haven't seen these, but I think just keep on updating folks in terms of what are the resources out there, whether it's from governments, whether it's from our peers, so access to information and resources, that's the key. And other than that, again, I think you guys are doing great. So.
Okay, well, I definitely appreciate that, and and again, thanks for your time. We're going to share this information. We're going to share all of the interviews that we do through this series. We're making sure that those are all available at manufacturingnewsnetwork.com, and that list. And feel free to kind of dig through that. We've done some pretty fun interviews and great conversations, and so that's going to be all available on the webpage for anybody that wants to come see. And then we've got that breaking news section. Again, we'll try to keep sure that we make sure that we hit all the information that's on that page as it's made available to us. And if you see something that you think is newsworthy, that's statewide, that directly impacts manufacturing that we don't have on there, please let us know, and we'll make sure that we put it on there. Now, we can't guarantee that we're going to vet every little piece that comes through, but we're going to check it out as best we can, because there's a lot of crazy rumors going on out there, as you know. And one thing I am going to throw a quick plug in is on Thursday, for those that are part of the Manufacturing News Network subscription program. On Thursday, we're doing a executive leadership call. And I think it'd be great if you're available. I'd love to have you sit on that. A good friend of mine by the name of Waldo Waldman. He's a New York Times bestseller. He's an executive business coach, but he's also a decorated fighter pilot. Now he flew F-16s during Desert Storm, and I loaded bombs on him. So it was pretty interesting dynamic and connection we got there. But he was flying around, and I was putting things on him to drop off and shoot and stuff. But Waldo's a great guy, unbelievable leader, and he's going to be sharing some insights on how to work through and lead your people through challenging times. and he's got a really neat delivery and perspective. And I think you'll really appreciate that. And again, that's going to be available on this Thursday at 2:00 on the Executive Leadership Roundtable. And then on Friday, we just announced a really cool thing. If you've been on social media at all, you have figured out that there's some people with some really interesting senses of humor. We as a team have been collecting some of the best memes and cartoons and stuff. We got some really cool stuff, and we're going to be sharing those. And Friday at 4:00, we call it Fun Friday. We just put it up on the website last night, but Fun Friday, it's a BYOB if you want to, however that works for you. But we're just going to get together, and we're just going, again, just kind of campfire, sit around and talk to each other and talk a little bit about the fun. The funnest parts that we can come up with out of the situation, but it gives us an opportunity to connect socially, although it be digital. So we're pretty excited about that, and we're committed to continue to serve in any way that we can. And if there's things again that you guys are seeing that we need to be doing or ideas, throw them our way. We're here to serve. So
yeah, absolutely. We sure do appreciate it.
Well, Felix, thanks again for your time, my friend, and we'll be seeing you on an upcoming call.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. Okay, bye-bye.